Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ohio Huntsman podcast with your hosts Jason, Jacob, and Jeff. This week's episode is basically a BS session with Jacob, Jeff, and I. Jeff tells the story of his second turkey of the season, kind of his ninth inning turkey. So we get to hear that story, and then it just from there kind of turns into a BS session. We talk about things like hunting non-natives, eating groundhogs, eating raccoons, if you're allowed to kill a Canadian goose with your bare hands. So it was an interesting, fun conversation. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Before we get into the episode, I want to talk about our sponsor, Monster Whitetail Grub. So they are an Ohio-based deer feed company that supports the Ohio Huntsman podcast. So if you're looking for a way to support Ohio Huntsman, one way you can do that is by supporting Monster Whitetail Grub. You support them, they support us, and everybody wins. So they have high-protein feed, they have a flavored corn, and they also have straight mineral that you can get. All great options. Right now is a good time of year to have mineral out. It's a good way to get pictures of your antler growth, and it's also good for lactating does with the fawns. So if you're interested in any of that, you want to try any of that product, there'll be a link to their Facebook page in our show notes. And that's the best way to get a hold of them and try some of their stuff. So with that, I think we're going to get into the episode. All right, so we are all here live, local, and in person. So the last couple episodes we've been doing, they've been remote. You know, we got other things going on, haven't had the time to get together. But Jacob and Jeff are here with me in our recording studio, a.k.a. my barn. And neighbor's mowing his grass, so hopefully that's not coming through on the mics, but this is going to kind of just be a BS session. Jeff has got, if you were following on Facebook, Jeff got a, what I guess I'll call a ninth inning turkey, and so we're going to hear that story. He says he's got another turkey-related, was it a turkey-related story?
Yeah, it's a turkey-related story.
Another turkey-related story that we're going to hear, and just kind of see where this one goes. So like I said, if you've been following on social, Jeff got himself another bird because, as you've heard before, Jeff's the huntingest mofo of the three of us. And so this is his second turkey, if you've been keeping track. And Jacob and I are on the board for a big big goose egg. So unless Jeff brings over some turkey nuggets for us, we are going turkeyless this year. Because today's the last day of season, isn't it? This is Sunday.
For the southern zone, yeah.
Yeah, so today is the last day of turkey season for most of the state. If you're in the northeast zone, you still got some time, but we are recording this on the Sunday, the last day of season. So instead of turkey hunting, we're talking to y'all, and we're going to hear Jeff's story and see where the conversation goes. So enough rambling. Jeff, let's hear the story of this bird you got.
Yeah, so I've been hunting evenings recently after work, during the work week, going out, putting in a few hours in the evenings.
I didn't know that. How much? Like, how frequently, how consistently you been doing that?
Oh, just here and there, maybe 1-2 days a week, just for the past 2 weeks. So, 3 times total I've been out probably.
What time you get out of work?
Typically around 4:35.
Okay.
Sometimes I work later, but
you going in cold, or you got cameras? Why the evenings? That's just when you have time, or?
But that's mostly when I have time. I do have cameras up, and there's been some evening activity. Not a ton, but I found a good spot. So I thought. There was a patch of woods. At some point, there was timbering going on.
This is in your backyard, I'm assuming? Or you...
Yeah.
You're in your backyard?
Yeah, so at some point, there was timbering. So there's basically two large trees that are not of good timber value. The one had a stand that grew into it. So I think they left that one because of that. It was a chain around the stand, and that grew into the tree.
That was before you owned the property?
Yeah. I'm fairly new to the property. This was long before me.
Okay.
But there's kind of like a little clearing, if you will, in the woods. These two large trees kind of shade out the ground, if you will, from other saplings growing up.
Sure.
But, in the spring, before the leaves get on the trees, grass grows in there. It makes a little field. So I was hunting the edge of it, thinking that turkey would come out into that little field, if you will. It's probably like 20 by 30.
Okay, I was just going to ask, how big of an area are you looking at here?
Yeah, it's not very big. And that's feet, 20 by 30 feet,
right.
Not yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a little area, but I figured it would be a good place for turkey. And
Sure.
then there's a four-wheeler path that cuts the back corner of my property. I don't have any clue who's really riding the four-wheeler, whose path it is, but it cuts the back corner of my property, and I know wildlife like to follow this four-wheeler path.
Sure.
So I'd been setting up on it for, those couple of days, not having a ton of luck. Trail camera would catch a turkey, not consistently, but every now and again, on that four-wheeler path. One night I went out, one evening I went out, I heard a gobble, which is rare for this area. The turkey just don't really gobble much. I don't really know why. I know it causes the dogs in the area to start barking when a turkey gobbles.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if they cue into that and think basically that they're, it lets them know, like, hey, that's a predator and I shouldn't do that.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is totally off the wall, and I have absolutely zero biological evidence to support this. But I had this thought. I heard someone else. I don't have any idea where I heard it. I forget, but it made sense. A lot of guys are talking about the turkey aren't gobbling like they used to, or this year that turkey don't gobble. And what are your thoughts? Again, sorry to interrupt your turkey story, but on the natural selection process, selecting for turkeys that don't gobble because they're less prone to get picked off by predators. So where turkey are going to gobble less going forward.
It seems to only make sense. Like that seems like a logical thought. But also on the other hand, it's an evolutionary flaw that they've kept for this long.
Right, so why change it now?
So I'm thinking that the flaw has to be pretty important to them, because it's a huge biological setback for them to have this trait, if you will. Especially shock gobbling. Regular gobbling is, communication. But shock gobbling is kind of like a biological flaw. It gives them no advantage.
No.
And it kind of
gives the predators a big advantage.
Right. So you would think if they were going to evolve to not have it, they would have done it by now.
And Jake, you weren't on the episode with Mark Wiley from the Division of Wildlife, but we talked about, so that'll release before this episode does, so you guys will have heard that episode by now, but he talked about why we asked him why season dates are set when they are. And, he gave a much better explanation than this, so listen to his description. But it was interesting in that, they're trying to time the season with gobbling, but also not interrupt nesting too bad. And he said it sort of makes sense, because we said we hear from a lot of people that season is too late. If you're not getting after them those first couple days or maybe that first weekend, the gobbling dies off. And he, in a roundabout way, said, yeah, I would kind of expect that based on what we know about nesting and things, is that around that time is kind of when the breeding's happening and the turkeys, the toms have hens with them, so they don't really need to gobble. Then those hens are going to go lay on nests, and the gobbling should pick back up. And so next year, I'm kind of wondering if maybe that first, because we always typically try to hunt that first weekend. If you're not hunting the first couple days, maybe we wait another week or two. Because, I don't know, Jeff, did you pick up on that when he was talking about that?
Yeah.
He basically said, like, yeah, I would kind of expect gobbling to slow down after that first week or something. Because the other thing he mentioned is, opening day is your biggest harvest day. You've just shot all the dominant birds, basically. And you kind of need a little bit of time to reestablish...
Who's
the subdominant birds need to realize, like, oh, hey, big boss Tom is not, I haven't seen him around, maybe I should give out the old, blah, 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 and see how things go. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of curious to maybe try a different weekend than what we've typically been doing, because and everybody, you always hear the, you should have heard him gobbling last week, but maybe it really is like, yeah, last week was better because of all these sort of factors. And
yeah, I mean, the last 3 years down at our hunting property, I've hunted 2 of them, and we're 1 for 3 for good activity, and it's the one I wasn't there.
Well, and he said 18 was a good year because of the 2016 cicada hatch. He said you can every 13-year cicada hatch or whatever it is.
I think, yeah.
Something like that he mentioned. You can watch that, like 2 years after a cicada hatch, you have a good turkey year because there's all these, right, there's all these little high-protein food bombs around. All the poults survive, or not all, obviously not all of them, but they've got all this great nutrition in the cicadas, and then you get, 2 years out and you have a good turkey season. So in 2018, when I shot my first and only turkey so far, I was probably capitalizing on that cicada hatch in 2016. So
that makes you less of a turkey hunter than you thought you were.
Yeah. I thought I was big stuff. Now I'm like, without the cicadas, I'm nothing.
Yeah. But something kind of going on that same thing. The interesting I found is basically after the first week, everybody was complaining about not hearing gobbles. This week, like towards the end of this week and this weekend, on social media, like everybody's saying like they're gobbling.
A lot of that, yeah.
We're having luck, which I've, kind of shocked me. Like,
yeah,
that.
Well, and
all of a sudden they turned back on.
It was, I'm trying to remember if it was the weekend after we got back or maybe 2 weekends after we got back. But I was back here in the backyard, and I got 2.5 acres, and it butts up to big, huge farm fields behind me. And there's a tree row that runs from like my back property line all the way to the far end of the field. And I was back there. I think I was planting trees, but doesn't matter what I was doing. I was back there farting around, and sure enough, I hear, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Couldn't hear a stinking, turkey at all. And then I got a hen back here yelping. I was half tempted to like, man, if I could, maybe I should go get my camo
set something up.
Yeah. It's like, it is season, so, but I didn't. Had chores, so. Anywho, I guess...
back to Jeff's story.
Back to Jeff's story after that sort of roundabout detour.
Yeah, so one of those evenings, I did hear one solitary gobble. Fairly close, but there was an owl that was just going crazy. I've never heard an owl hoot so much, and it got one to shot gobble.
Fired up, yeah.
So that kind of got me thinking, okay, well, there's at least one around. Mm-hmm. So we'll jump to the night before, the time I went out hunting in the evening before the time that I actually shot the bird.
You did a turkey rain dance and it worked?
Yeah. No. But I was hunting and, not hearing anything. And all of a sudden, a hen pops out in front of me, real close. There's a hen. And, I'm kind of not paying much attention to her. I'm, trying to see if there's a tom coming behind her. But then I realized that this hen is bearded. It's a legal bird.
Oh.
So then
There must be something in the water at your house because you killed your first turkey, which was a bearded hen at your house.
Yeah, I think it's a genetic
There's something
thing.
genetics.
Like,
you got bearded hens running rampant out there.
So it's a bearded hen. It's a legal bird. So I'm debating on whether to shoot it or not.
It's in range at this point, or
Yeah, it's in range. And I'm debating, do I want to shoot it? It's
Right.
legal bird, season's almost over. And, kind of as I'm making up my mind, I notice, that it was standing next to, I don't know if you guys know what Mayflower is.
describe it.
Mayflower, it's a plant. It grows. It typically has like a little stem. It grows kind of like a palm tree, but they're small. They're about a foot.
Oh, and it gets like that big canopy leaf on it,
Yes,
like
exactly
about the size of a dinner plate or something, right? Like a
yeah.
8-inch kind of
Yes,
canopy, one leaf on top with a single stem coming up.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's it. And if you've probably never noticed, but they get a white flower. That white flower then makes a little fruit. Actually,
Okay.
they're also called May apples.
Is it edible? Is it a wild edible? Do people eat these?
I don't know. I know animals eat them. I would assume. I don't think they're poisonous. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
But you can find them everywhere. They're pretty common. But I'm basically hunting, and there's a lot of that around. Well, I start to notice that, where this hen is, it looks like the wind's blowing the Mayflower behind it. And it's like, but the wind isn't blowing. Like, what is that? So then I'm thinking, bobcat.
Oh,
I'm thinking, there's a bobcat sneaking through there, or, something.
it's about to smoke this hen.
Kind of looks like a snake in the grass, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's like, something's coming up on this thing. So I'm more interested in, what is this going to be?
Right. How's this going to play out?
So, it's getting closer, and it's identical to that scene in one of the Jurassic Parks with the little dinosaurs. Yeah. Identical. It's getting closer, I'm hearing the shark attack noises, dun-on,
right.
dun-on, dun-on. And then it pops out what's doing that, and it's 5 or 6 poults.
Oh.
So that clearly changes my mind that I'm not shooting this thing.
Yeah.
But, they were teeny tiny.
Yeah.
Just getting off the nest.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't their first venture away from the nest. And basically as soon as they kind of popped out, then she kind of realized oh, now my poults are in the wide open.
Yeah.
And kind of moved on to get them to follow her out. But it was wow, that could have been an interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought that could be a possibility, that you could shoot a bearded hen with poults with her.
Right. Yeah.
I
Sounds to me like if you'd have shot that bird, you'd have had a science project of raising some poults.
Yeah. It's I would have never thought that could happen that,
Yeah. So you may have already said this, but what week of season was this?
This was the second to last week of season.
Okay. So side note, Jake, again, when we talked to Mark, we were talking about hens and things like that and protecting hens during nesting season and things like that. And we asked him about that hen that you guys jumped and basically stepped on, and it flushed. And he said there's a very good chance that that bird had a nest, was either laying on a nest or had a nest very nearby, which is why it held so tight, which I thought was interesting.
That would make sense. I wish now that I would have thought that and looked
around
for it, because I guarantee it. That's what it after the fact, and we kind of talked amongst us about it. I'm like, I bet that's what that was.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to either. Now I will. If if that happens in the future, I'd be like, I'm gonna poke around a little bit, but just because it would be cool to see a turkey nest, know. But anywho,
yeah. So now jumping into the bird I shot, the Wednesday before the end of season.
That hen and those poults they kind of worked off and
yeah. As soon as the poults popped out, she basically took off. And they followed her. Like she made a beeline out of there.
They never knew you were there, or you don't think? Hard to tell.
Hard to tell. I mean, I kind of, she came in. I think. I mean, I'm not sure. She kind of just popped out in front of me, but and then she hung out for a while and then left, and she left pretty quickly, so maybe she knew something was up, but I've also, hens don't like when you're calling and they kind of come to the noise and don't find anything. A lot of times they get upset and kind of run out of the area.
All right.
So she took off pretty quickly. She was not wasted. She wasn't picking her way out of there. She was moving. So the Wednesday before the end of season, I go out. It's probably around 6 o'clock is, when I get out there. And I sit down. I get all set up. Sit down. I do a couple of clucks, followed by just a few yelps. Then I decide, all right, I'm going to take a picture.
What kind of call are you tooting on at this point?
I'm using a box call and then the
that
flex
tone blow through thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do that call and I decide I'm going to take a picture for Instagram and, kind of get settled in. So I, take the picture for Instagram and basically, put my phone away, kind of look up, and I should go back. Where I'm hunting is kind of like a lower creek bottom area. So there's a pretty large flat, about the size of like 2 football fields down close to the creek. And then there's about a 15-foot bowl that comes around hillside.
Is that like the backside of your pond there, or
no? This
I've never walked your property, so I'm like a listener here and trying to understand the layout of this. So
there's a creek that comes through and makes like a horseshoe.
Your property is generally rectangular in shape?
Yes, generally rectangular, kind of bowling alley style. It's not square or close to square.
Right.
It's
long and narrow.
Yeah, long and narrow.
So the back, would you say half is wooded, more than half?
I would say the back 2/3.
Back 2/3, okay.
Yeah, is wooded.
And so the back narrow edge is where the creek comes in and comes out, makes that horseshoe?
Yes.
Okay.
Makes a horseshoe.
Which forms an island in a sense of land that you can't get to unless you either cross onto somebody else's property or the creek is low enough to walk across.
Yeah, I can't get to it unless the creek's low enough to walk across. Or I guess I could go like on the road around a bridge and like through someone else's property to get there.
If you got permission from them to cross their property. Yeah. Okay.
But in practicality, at the moment, only way I can get there is to cross the creek.
And when it rains a lot, that thing comes up. Like
Creek turns into a river.
Yes.
When it's low, is it like there's exposed rocks you're walking across and not getting wet, or are you putting waders on to get across it because it's...
No, when it's low, it's a trickle.
Okay.
Like you can walk across, like you don't need to step from rock to rock. You're just walking across, a thin trickle of water.
Okay. But when it rains, it's grabbing all that runoff from all the fields around, and it becomes a rushing torrent of a river.
Hip high wouldn't be abnormal for it to get hip high.
Okay.
So I'm all the way in the back, so that creek comes in and then goes out of our property, and then in the back is more woods.
Okay.
So I'm in the back, and there's a bottom down there that is, like I said, about the size of 2 football fields, bottom, and then there's a bowl around that's, about a 15-foot hill, maybe 20-foot hill.
So you're in the bottom of the bowl.
Yeah, I'm in the bottom.
Okay.
So I look up, and not far away, I'm trying to think, maybe 60 yards is where this hill is.
Okay.
There's turkey coming down the hill, and I can't really get a great look at them other than they're turkey, because the leaves have trees on them. There's all kinds of growth this time of year. So
are they walking in a line? Are they kind of in a general, like, following each other?
They're following each other, but they're not in a line. They're in a group. Like they're not in a line. They're in a pack, if you will.
Okay.
Like they're not walking single file.
Well, the reason I ask is, like, in general, right, when you see more than one animal coming through the woods, like, they're, at least my experience has been, they generally kind of follow one another. They're not walking, like, marching through the woods like the British redcoats. There's like a wall of turkeys marching through the woods generally, right? I don't know if there's there's probably some sort of evolutionary advantage to that. Like, if the guy in the front gets whacked, then we all can get away versus, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I would think it's probably a sound thing as well. That if you're walking kind of single file, you are making less noise because there's less things, like basically the leaf that's in front of you has already been crunched by the animal, the animal in front.
Yeah, that's true.
But so they're coming down the hill. So I kind of get turned a little bit because, let's say if the turkey were coming at 12 o'clock, I was facing like 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So I get turned so that I'm facing where they're coming from, and they get to the bottom and disappear because of the grass being so tall. So I'm kind of set up, and I'm, trying to call with one hand and, kind of hold the gun with the other, and I'm, getting things, and then I see the first head.
Are they making any noise at this point, or you just saw them and?
I just saw them.
Okay.
They're not making any noise.
Okay.
I see the first head. It's red, but I can't see any body. So I'm waiting to confirm that it's a legal bird.
Right.
It's got a beard. I'm pretty sure, but not positive. So it's coming in, and I'm starting to see other heads, pop up here and there. And so that first one gets close. I'm going to say probably 20 yards before I can confirm that it's a legal bird. And there's 4 or 5 heads at this time, that I can see. So there's a lot of eyes around me. And they kind of, at this point, have fanned out. They're not really all that close to each other.
Okay.
They're kind of fanned out in front of me.
It's probably a good, going back to my earlier comment, it probably depends too on like the terrain that you're in. A lot of times probably there's one good way to go, right? I mean, It's too brushy to go that way or this way. Like we're all just going to funnel through here. But anyhow, go on.
But that first turkey pops out, and I see the beard. So it's kind of an awkward, because basically I was, aiming at 12 o'clock. Well, now the turkey kind of came in at 2 o'clock. So I have to kind of, You
got to swing even farther.
Yeah, swing over, and there's a tree. So I'm kind of shooting in an awkward position. And the hand I was using to call didn't have a glove on it. Everything else was covered in camo.
Which is your trigger hand or your...
No, which is...
your support hand?
My support hand.
Okay.
And I have the gun resting on a log, but, yeah, so I'm nervous about bringing up that hand.
Right.
So I kind of get everything set and, move that hand up and pull the trigger. Let it fly. Turkey drops. So we're good, Well, then the rest of the turkeys come running into the opening. Like, now they're all just standing just out in the opening in the clearing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is the stupidest, I wish I had someone else here, who could blast one of these, because it's like, I've never, and they were all Jakes. And it turned out that there was 5 Jakes.
Okay.
I shot the first one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of came in and were just kind of standing around and I mean, it felt like an eternity. It was probably 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But plenty enough time
to have shot one.
Yeah, shoot another one.
So maybe next time when you're in that situation, you're like, I don't know if they're going to come in. You just blast off a shotgun round.
Yeah.
And they'll just run in. Yeah.
But it was bizarre. Like, because I had to think, like, why would they do that? And my best thought was, in that grass, they didn't feel super safe because they couldn't really see around them all that well.
Right. They kind of had to stick their head up and kind of periscope to...
Yeah. So they ran out in the open so that they could see where an attack was going to come from. But in doing that, they made themselves plenty visible. I mean, because they running out into the open means they ran, like, into me.
Right, yeah.
Like, the closest one probably got, I don't know, maybe 10 yards. I mean, right out in front of me. So.
And so you had your second bird of the season.
Yeah.
So, how, I've got a sample size of 1, but body size, like, meat output, how do they compare?
I have this written down on my phone. How much meat I got out of each bird that I got this year. So I got
Look at that. This guy comes prepared.
I got a tom
Got a boss
earlier
tom.
this year.
Boss Tom, big boy.
Yeah, it was a big one.
With broken leg.
Yeah. Listen to the episode. Jason, you got the number?
No, I don't, but I will link it in the show notes.
Yeah, you should know that off the top of your head.
It's called Jeff Shot a Turkey. So look that one up.
So the Jake, all the meat together, I got 4 pounds, 2 ounces of meat.
4 on the Jake.
On the Jake.
And that is...
Sorry, 4 pounds, 13 ounces.
Okay. And that is 2 breasts...
2 thighs, and some scrap.
Okay.
Some other, a little bit of like wing scrap.
You just trim the meat off, like what little bit of meat you get off the wings.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's deboned, completely deboned meat.
Right.
And then let's see here. On the tom, I got 7 pounds, 2 ounces.
Wow, okay. So first of all, what are you weighing these with?
A digital scale.
Like a kitchen scale?
Kitchen scale, yeah.
Okay.
After they've been deboned, trimmed the fat off, and vacuum sealed.
So the rest is guts and bones and feathers, huh?
Yeah. And when
we didn't put that big tom to a scale, but that thing was heavy.
When it was whole.
When it was whole.
And when you think about it, because, I've done the same thing with a deer, that's better odds than what you're getting with a deer. Better percentages than with a deer.
I guess probably.
Because I've shot deer and gotten 20 pounds of ground meat.
Well, when you blow both front shoulders out.
True. But, and those were little deer.
Yeah, that's true.
That deer was probably 100 pounds and getting 20 pounds of meat.
Yeah.
So, when it boils down to it, the meat you get off an animal is pretty precious because there's really not much.
So now I want to see a farm turkey standing next to a wild turkey. Like, because, you go to get a butterball, right? It's a 20-pound turkey, right? 18-pound... Right? Am I thinking of that right? When you buy a frozen turkey?
But there's bones in there, too. It's not
right.
bone.
Yeah.
But
right.
Yeah, frozen turkey, 20 pound. Yeah.
Yeah, you could... Yeah. I think...
So are those really just, like, roided out, genetically modified... Like, standing next to each other, would you notice, like... Man, that farm turkey is jacked, or, it looks like a fat slob, or, like compared to a wild turkey?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that farm turkeys, the standard farm turkey is a broad-breasted white.
Right.
And that they're really freaks. We've bred them to be, I don't believe that they can reproduce naturally.
Most farm animals are anymore these days, it seems, but...
Yeah. But, I don't think a broad-breasted white can reproduce naturally. The male's breasts are too big to allow it to do the deed.
So it's all artificial insemination.
Yeah. Which I don't know how you artificially inseminate a turkey. I don't have any clue about that. But
I don't either. But, okay. So, was that both your turkey stories?
Yeah, those were, yeah.
Okay.
Seeing the bearded hen, thinking about shooting it, and then
seeing the poults.
Seeing it had babies that was an interesting life experience for me, for sure.
It was a pivotal moment in your...
Yeah, well, I gotta think that's probably one of the only times that you can be hunting and literally shoot a mom off of her babies.
Yeah.
You know, like where, I mean, I don't know how, because I guess those poults are probably fully functioning. They're just probably not very good at surviving yet.
Yeah.
So they have the potential to survive. You know, they don't need their mother to survive other than for protection and like knowledge.
Right. Learning the cues, yeah.
Yeah, but I would agree with you though. I mean, just because of how few and how hard the world is on turkey poults, I think if you were to shot that bearded hen, all those poults would have not survived.
Yeah, I would have, yeah.
Well, I don't even know if they would have let, you know, I potentially could have shot her and walked up and picked up a poult, you know, because I don't know if they would have left her.
Yeah.
But it was a very odd, you know, experience. Cause,
well, and when they're little too, I think she still has to keep them warm. You know, if you get a cold night or something, they all crawl up under her wings and stuff, and she keeps them warm, right? Because they can freeze to death. I guess you wouldn't freeze to death, but they can die from the cold, even without it getting below freezing, is my understanding.
Right.
They just don't have the thermal capacity, I guess, at that small stage. And I know, like, deer fawns, they are capable, right, when deer season rolls in, but you can definitely watch season's open, and you can watch a fawn still nurse.
Right.
I did that last year.
Right. But that fawn's fully functioning.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, the only other time I could think that you could potentially shoot a mom off of her babies would be something that doesn't really have a closed season.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Coyotes, groundhogs,
yeah,
which are mostly like that because they're nuisance, you know, and they're not a game species.
Yeah.
I mean, some people eat groundhog. I guess some people eat coyote too.
I want to try groundhog. I mean, because why wouldn't it be good?
Yeah,
you just eat grass and stuff, right? I mean,
right.
like,
I've heard from people that, yeah, like groundhog is like really good meat. You know, it's super clean. You know, all they're eating is clover, basically.
Right. Like, I don't know why it's not something that
more people do. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Because, I mean, I could see, right, if it's eating trash, you know, a coon, something been eaten in people's dumpsters and garbage and stuff, right, that could be funky, but
right.
Groundhog just eats grass and stuff, you know, I mean, it would, I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've probably talked to more people that have eaten coon than groundhog, and eating raccoon is dangerous. I mean, you can get trichinosis from eating a raccoon if the meat's not all the way cooked.
Right. Who have you talked to anybody I know that has eaten coon?
Well, a lot of people you know, but like Dad's eaten coon.
Really?
I mean, I think a lot of the older people who, you know, when fur prices were high, all of them tried it.
Huh.
You know, because I know a lot of older people that have eaten raccoon.
Yeah.
And then Jack down at the cabin would always talk about eating groundhog. He would eat groundhog.
Well, if I get the opportunity, I'm eating with groundhog this year. I don't have them in my yard. I don't see them, but given the opportunity, I'm going to capitalize. Because I got family to feed, man.
No turkey to feed them.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I gotta rely on groundhogs.
Speaking of another animal, which this one, I don't think people hunt much, but I kind of got an interest in, checked with the ODNR, and that's pigeon, like your rock dove.
Yeah.
I checked with the ODNR, and yeah, there's no closed season. They're an invasive species. And
because they're a European species, they're not a native.
Yeah, and they were originally brought here as meat.
Oh.
Like they were originally brought as a food source. So it kind of blows my mind that we brought these things as a food source, and now they're seen as being like dirty, unclean.
Well, and maybe this is just my perception, but I feel like I've heard that like the city pigeons are kind of dirty, right? Just because of where they live, they're in the city. There's all this trash and waste and yucky water that they're drinking, and like
eating cigarette butts.
Yeah, you might not want to eat a city pigeon, but if you like if you get them in your barn or something,
people who hunt them say, definitely don't eat city pigeons, but if you get pigeons in your barn or basically eating your grain,
right?
That's good eat.
Well, and wasn't it you that mentioned another invasive, what is it, European starling?
Yeah. When I asked about the pigeons, the ODNR basically came back and said, shoot all the pigeons you want. And
while you're at it,
here's the other list of things that are in the same category, of I don't know what they exactly called them, but basically invasive birds that you can shoot for sport, because there's not a lot of, there's game birds, and then there's this other class of birds that aren't really considered game birds, but you can shoot them for sport.
So everybody knows I would think everybody knows a pigeon, but a European starling, when you see those giant flocks of black birds, that's probably a flock of European starlings. Is it European or English starlings? I
think European.
I think so.
They're called European, yeah.
But so those giant flocks of black birds are typically a big giant group of European starlings, and they are a generally black bird with, I think in most cases, a yellow beak, right? That's sort of and they're kind of robinish in size, if you will. They're not as meaty as a pigeon, but they're not small like a chickadee.
Right, yeah.
They're like in between. So you basically would be popping a little like chicken nugget sized breast out of them.
Yeah. They're probably about the size of a dove, maybe a little smaller than a dove.
Yeah, I would say maybe a little more streamlined than a dove.
Yeah, but you would be popping the same, or it would be similar to what you would get off of a dove.
I mean, I guess you could pluck them and cook them whole if you wanted to, and you have like one per person or something. But if you were gonna, because that's another thing I want to try, which might be a good summertime activity. If you were gonna hunt these things, would you try to blast them with a shotgun, or would you try and pick them off with a 22 on the ground? Or
I would use a shotgun. I think a 22. I think if you were going to hunt them with a 22, you'd have to be using like subsonic 22, or else you'd blow them apart.
Well, I was thinking headshots.
Oh, wow. Well, you'd have to be a pretty good shot.
That's what I was thinking, because I've been watching them in my yard, and I'm thinking, because they just walk around, right? And they very rarely like stop and hold still to where you could shoot them in the head. And if they are stopped, they're like standing there pecking at the ground, picking up bugs or something. Like, because I was thinking, well, there's not a lot of meat there. I don't want to fill it all full of shot or whatever. But I guess you shoot doves with a shotgun, right?
Right, yeah.
So that's why I was originally thinking 22, but then I was like, man, that would be... I think you'd go through a lot of 22 shells before you got one little bird.
Yeah, it would be good practice.
Yeah, good marksmanship training. That's what I'm going to do with Ella. Here, take this 22 and shoot all these shoot all these starlings. Which even the now I don't think they say they don't recommend hunting them, but I read an article, because when I was reading about these things after you mentioned that, the Audubon Society would, it's like the bird society, bird watching. I came across an article on their website, and they said, if there's one bird to hate, it's the European starling, because it's invasive, and I think it tears up nests and stuff of native birds and things. Which I think because I've got a couple bird houses hanging in this tree behind my house, and I think I watched one murder a native bird nest and eat the eggs. It was on the front of this. It was hanging on the front of this birdhouse, sticking its head in there, pulling stuff out, and the birds whose nest it was were flying. They were freaking out, flying all around, trying to get it away. And after it had had its way with whatever it was doing in there, it flew off. But I think they got in. There was eggs in there, and they got in there and ate the eggs. So could be a good summertime pastime. Although I don't see them in the big, huge flocks, or at least I haven't. I saw them like early spring, late winter, early spring. Maybe I don't know if they sort of migrate, if their territory shifts a little bit. But I was seeing them in the big flocks early spring. But now I just have onesie twosies in the yard.
Yeah, I think they migrate. I think because you get those big flocks in the spring, and then in the fall when they're cutting the fields. Yeah, you get those big flocks. So I think it is a migration thing.
Yeah, and some of those are like huge flocks of birds.
Yeah,
and I can't. I'm by no means a bird expert, but I've just what I've read is they've said generally those big huge flocks of black birds are European starlings, which are an invasive non-native. So that means no close season. Shoot as many as you want. Eat them all. It's all good. I might give it a try.
Yeah. It'd be fun, especially when they're flocked up. Be easy. Well, easier, I guess.
If you could get them
to fly over you flocked up like that, you got a lot more to hit.
Yeah, the trick is like, how do
throw
you...
a shotgun out?
I guess other than, I don't know, maybe throwing some seed out or something. Like, it's not like a duck or something where you're going to toot on a call and get them to come in, or I don't think.
I was wondering if you could make decoys.
Oh.
And you put, when
100 black dots out in your yard. And
basically, or out at the edge of a field.
Yeah.
I bet you one of those big flocks goes over, sees, a group of
right.
what they see as birds. They're thinking there's food there, and they might fly in.
Swarm in, yeah.
And if you get one of those things about, one of those groups of birds about ready to land, you could really sling some lead.
Yeah. I wonder if there's... I would imagine, now whether or not we're going to find them on this Ohio Huntsman podcast, but there's got to be somebody out there that's like a European starling specialist. Like, they've found that these things are good to eat. There's no close season on them. They're everywhere. And somebody has taken it up as a hobby to figure out a way to harvest massive numbers of starlings.
I know with the pigeons there's people who, they've basically given up all other hunting, and they, because basically every farmer wants rid of their pigeons.
Right.
And they're more than willing to go and shoot them. They got a list, a mile long of people who say, please come out and shoot my pigeons. When are you coming out? They're begging you to come out and hunt.
Right.
And you just...
Yeah, permission is easy.
Yeah, because everybody wants rid of them. So I know there's people that do that.
It's probably like city folk with Canadian geese. That's right, people hunt, go out and set up decoys and they hunt Canadian geese, but that's definitely, like whitetails are getting, like Canadian geese in a lot of realms are seen as very much a nuisance in this, in the parks, the city pond or whatever, like they make a mess, goose crap everywhere, chasing people around. But yeah,
that resident goose population, because those are basically the ones that are really making a mess everywhere, are typically your resident goose. They live here year round.
Oh.
So at one point in history, not too long ago, I can't quote exact years, but 50s, 60s, 70s, Canadian goose was rare. A lot of waterfowls were rare in the United States. But for some reason, we honed in on the Canadian goose. That's the one that we were interested in. So they went and captured flocks of these, brought them down, and released them. Released groups of...
Captured them out of Canada? Or when you say brought them down?
Yeah, I think they captured them out of Canada. I'm not exactly
Sure.
positive where they captured them. I'm thinking, but brought them and released them. Well, they thought that these goose would probably keep their same migratory patterns. And they, were also encouraging people to kind of create, like goose boxes and stuff to help the goose population.
Right.
I can't remember. What was it called? Hobby honkers? I don't know. I read a publication by like the U.S. Forest Service or something. That,
okay.
And this is something that they published about like, creating goose boxes is like a hobby.
To help, yeah.
Yeah. But what happened was these geese didn't leave ever. They didn't keep their normal migration pattern. They just stayed.
None of them did, or some of them just kind of set up shop? I would imagine some of them probably did, right? Because they...
Yeah, I'm sure...
Don't they use some kind of like magnetic north? Or, is that true that that's how they kind of base their migration, how they find their way back and forth? They somehow can sense the... like.
Honestly, I don't know.
I feel like I've heard that before.
Yeah, that would make sense. But at least some of them didn't...
Just set up shop. They're like, this is pretty nice here. I'm just going to stick around.
Yeah, they just stuck around. And kept reproducing. So now you have these groups of resident geese that...
So question for you, related to geese, and I've not looked into this, but you get into interesting conversations with people who don't hunt and didn't grow up with family that hunt. So one time I had a guy ask me, he knew I was a hunter, and he was asking about Canadian geese because he lives somewhere where they're an issue, right? So he said, I can't shoot these things, right? I said, well, not without a hunting license and stamp and all. There's things that you need to legally shoot a goose. And he said, I bet I could probably walk up and just grab one and wring its neck. I didn't shoot it, but would I get in trouble for killing one without the proper paperwork? I said, I would think yes.
Yeah, I would 100% think yes. And I also think you may get in other trouble for, potentially like animal cruelty or something.
Okay.
Because I don't think that, I don't think wringing their neck is an approved
method of harvest.
Yeah.
I don't know. In the moment, I was like, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't.
And I mean, you could definitely get, damage permits to, control the populations. I think they try to get you to kill their nests is what they, I think you shoo them away. And I think there's pretty darn strict rules on it's sort of like the abortion topic. Like on how mature the egg is onto whether you can kill it or not. Like whether you're allowed to kill it.
How would you know?
So it's been a long time since I've,
You
been
got
in
to
school.
candle these eggs or something?
But no, I believe how the process works is you shoo the bird away, which can be difficult.
Right.
But then you take the egg and put it in a bucket of water. And if it sinks, I think if it sinks, you can kill it. If it floats, you can't. If it floats, you have to put it back. And what you want to do, you put all the eggs back anyways, but I think you dip the egg in mineral oil. If you are allowed to kill it, you dip it in mineral oil, which prevents the shell from breathing, which effectively kills the bird inside.
Oh.
Kills the egg.
Yeah, the embryo or whatever.
Yeah. And then you put them back, and the geese will still sit on them like a regular nest.
That if you smash them, they'll lay more.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And
interesting.
then what you're doing is controlling the birth process. You're kind of birth control for geese. You're not killing the current ones. You're just preventing mass numbers from being reproduced.
Do you know you can do something similar with chicken eggs to see to tell if they're still good? If you put a chicken egg, just that you would buy to eat at the store, if you put a chicken egg in water and it sinks, it's good. If it stands on end, like in the bottom of the glass, it's getting ready to go bad. And if it floats, you probably shouldn't eat it. That's not a great egg anymore. I think if it stands on end, you probably want to use them within the week or something type of thing. But they're still good. So if you had eggs in your fridge, you're like, boy, I don't know if these are any good anymore. Give them the old glass of water test. Man, this has been educational. We just learned you all up something. I'll probably get a bunch of letters saying that that's BS. And
Probably.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure the people who actually, have paid more attention to goose populations, know a lot more about this stuff than I do.
Yeah.
I'm just, regurgitating basically stuff that I've heard, kind of. I'm not an expert by any means.
Yeah. Huh. All right. Well, I think we've been at this for over an hour, so you guys got anything else? Jake, you got anything else you want to bring up? Oh, before we go, you have to tell the story about your daughter's birthday present for you.
Oh. So my daughter, Lily, and I have birthdays that are very close together at the end of June. So we've been discussing birthday.
She's going to be turning 4.
She's going to be turning 4. And we've been discussing, her birthday's coming, my birthday's coming. So we've been talking about what we want for our birthday. And she asked me, Daddy, what do you want for your birthday? And it kind of caught me off guard. Why would my 4-year-old be asking me? She's not going to give me anything for my birthday.
She doesn't have a job or anything.
Right.
She's just kind of...
Right. She's just a bum. Right. Just sits at home, plays with toys, and eats my food. So
sometimes mine doesn't even put pants on.
So I was trying to figure out, is this mom prying, or does she, I don't know how to answer this question. So I responded with, well, I'm going to have to think about that. And maybe 10 seconds later, 15 seconds, I don't know, not too much longer, she's like, Daddy, I got an idea. And I was like, oh, okay, what's up? She's like, why don't you ask for deer safety for your birthday? I was kind of taken aback. I was like, deer safety? I asked her, I said, what do I need deer safety for? What does that mean? Yeah. And she said, yeah, why don't you ask for deer safety so that a deer doesn't bite you again? And I was like, what do you mean bite me? And she's like, yeah, you need safety goggles and deer safety so a deer doesn't bite you in the face again. So if anyone who follows the podcast, during deer season, I had an unfortunate event of scope bite, and I still have a Harry Potter scar between my eyes from my scope. Took it to the face. So my daughter, who at the time was 3 and a half, I guess, she interpreted it when we told her what happened, that I was hunting deer and I got hurt and my face got cut, that the deer bit me.
Because it was, I don't think we ever shared pictures, but it was bad. I mean, your eyes got black and blue.
Yeah,
it bled. It was not just a little scrape.
No,
like
it wasn't.
It kind of rocked your world.
Yeah.
So,
Probably if I wasn't at the cabin, might have been able to take a stitch or two.
Yeah.
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 Definitely put a gash between my eyes.
Yeah. If she's anything like my daughter, they want to know, like, what happened? Why do you, if I just put a Band-Aid on, like, oh my goodness, what happened? It's like, it's just a little scrape. It's all good.
Right.
This was not just a little scrape. So she definitely would have noticed and wondered what happened.
Yes.
So a deer bit you in the face.
Deer bit me in the face, and I'm getting deer safety for my birthday.
So this is your public service warning. Deer will bite you in the face. According to a 3-year-old. So I laughed when you told that story. So I wanted you to share that because that's just a funny story. So, all right. Well, if that's all good, I'm hoping it's not going to rain. It was looking a little gray, but I need to mow my grass this afternoon. Feels like I'm always mowing my grass, but such is life. But we're going to sign off. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the show. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode with Mark Wiley. I know we learned a lot on that one about turkeys. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Sort of our random, not random. We heard Jeff's story about turkeys, and then we kind of wandered from there, which is always kind of fun. If you guys are enjoying the show, the biggest thing is share it. Share it with your buddies. Get the word out. Take a screenshot of you listening to the episode and tag us in it, and we'll share it to our stories and just help get the word out, help the show grow. We're just trying to get information and entertainment out to Ohio's hunters. So if you want to support the show in other ways, make sure first you're subscribed to the show. That way you're getting notified of new episodes automatically. And go ahead and download each episode. And then if you want a t-shirt, we've got Ohio Huntsman Eat Local t-shirts. So there'll be links to that in the show notes. So with that, hope everybody's enjoying their spring, enjoying the warm weather we've been getting recently, and hopefully you had some luck in the turkey woods. And with that, thanks for listening.